Talk with God, Step 5. You will be slow to realize. It's been 37 years since I was converted, or born again, or saved, whatever you want to call it. Now, when you read this, it may seem intimidating, or you may compare your results with mine. Now, please understand that these things I'm sharing took a long time to coalesce into what you're hearing today. Many of the things I learned over those years, I didn't understand God's involvement with the process at that time. The realization that God was talking to me directly didn't occur for quite some time. Remember the example from Step 2 about finally understanding a scripture more fully after reading it for the umpteenth time? God was speaking with you, you just didn't realize it at that time. See, this was my experience for quite a few years, and to this day, much of the time, I'm not immediately realizing when God has spoken to me at the time it occurs. Now, it was 6 years from my salvation before I really wrapped my mind around the concept that I could talk with God and have an expectation that He would answer. Now, I believe that one of the main reasons for doing this series is that you will not have to go through all those years before finally realizing God is speaking with you and teaching you directly. You can step into a deeper and more personal aspect of the relationship a lot sooner than I did. Now, that being said, we can all be slow to realize that He's talking with us. This speaking and teaching is on such a personal and individual level that many times we just don't realize it's occurring at the time it happens. Now, I will admit, when I was a brand new Christian, I wanted God to talk to me. I wanted Him to show me pictures. I expected His voice to be loud and clear. I was disappointed when these things didn't occur. Now, in retrospect, God was speaking with me and teaching me all kinds of great things. I just didn't realize it. As I said, God showed me pictures for years before I realized that was one way He communicated with me. For me personally, being slow to realize was a huge blessing because it gave me time to study and process what I was learning without the distraction of questioning, is that God talking to me right now? See, I was not aware of God teaching me and being distracted by that fact. God taught, I learned, and what was important was the lessons being learned. In other words, it was the outcome, not the process. Now, the other great blessing about being slow to realize, well, for years God was talking and teaching me, but I was not running around boasting that God told me this and trying to lend His authority to what I was saying or doing. Now, 99.99% of the time, what God is saying or teaching me is for me alone. Sharing it with others often has little impact on their lives. It doesn't profit them like it helps me. Now remember, relationships develop over time and with communication. God has chosen the most personal and intimate way to communicate with us directly. Since our bodies hold our mind and our spirit, His communication most of the time sounds like our mind. Now, this can cause real confusion when we talk with Him. If we try to analyze it when it is occurring, usually we won't be sure if it was Him or just our mind making it up. The times we have to hear from Him because of something that's going on in our lives and we just gotta have an answer today are usually the times His answer seems to be farthest away. Or we just know that we heard from Him, so now I'm moving ahead because God just told me to do this. But then we don't get the result we desire. Over 37 years, God has told me to share something specific with someone else that God showed me they needed, I don't know, maybe a dozen times. People that run around saying, God told me this, God told me that, when they do that all the time, they don't appear to be hearing from God, in my opinion. Usually what they have to say makes them look important, not God. They're trying to use His authority to make what they have to say seem important. Now, God is not going to have you running around spouting, "Thus saith the Lord," unless you're a prophet. Now, there are prophets given to the church. I know I'm no prophet. You probably are not one either. Real prophets tend to be rare. Now, all that being said, you will have experiences that are unique to you. Some will be emotional, some will be intense, some will be so deep in understanding that they take your breath away. But for me, those experiences have been rare. Most of them can be likened to a father teaching his child through everyday life as that father talks with the child. Now, we as children receive this teaching. We don't fully understand at that time the fullness of what we're receiving. It might be years later when we reflect on it that we understand more fully what we were being taught. Now, the time between teaching and understanding is not critical. What is critical is that the teaching is occurring and the understanding will show up. Sometimes it blows your socks off. Other times you'll just think, that makes sense. God will make the points he wants to make when he wants to make them and how he wants to make them. So read and study. Always be thankful. Don't forget to ask. Think about what you're learning, and God will be there. Over time, you'll come to realize he's been there much more than you initially realized. So don't be concerned if you, like me, are slow to realize.